Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to an all-new Talkin Movies Double Feature. As always, I'm your host, the real Geno Reynolds, and today we're going to be talking about two movies that are both based on real life, or the movies are based on a true story. The first movie we're going to be talking about is On the Basis of Sex, which is the quote-unquote true story of how Ruth Bader Ginsburg started her career, got through school, and finally ended up being on the U.S. Supreme Court. I wasn't real excited about seeing this movie. Lately, especially, biopics have really rubbed me the wrong way. I mean, just look at my Bohemian Rhapsody review for that. That being said, despite having researched this a little bit and seeing that it did change a few things, the overall message of this movie is pretty good. You see how Ruth Bader Ginsburg fought for equality between the sexes and all that. The thing is, while the movie's fine and the message is fine, it's not a great movie. It's not a bad movie, don't get me wrong. But in a way, it just falls right there in the middle. While the message is really good and the outcome that the main characters are trying to get to, just the overall movie itself feels, I don't want to say soap opera-ish, because it's not that bad, but I don't know, it just feels the drama doesn't work, or isn't really as effective as it could be. Now, that's not to say that I didn't like the performances in it. I thought Felicity Jones did a pretty good job as Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I thought Armie Hammer did well as Martin Ginsburg, her husband. But then again, it's funny because on the quote-unquote side of good in this movie, those performances were really good. I loved Kathy Bates in it. She was in it not a ton, but I really liked her in it. But when it came to the quote-unquote villains, the men that are trying to stop women from, getting their way, is kind of how the movie portrayed it. Now, granted, I didn't live back then, and it may have been this ridiculous. I don't know. But in this movie, it just kind of felt ridiculous. It just didn't feel like true to life, even though it might have been. Sam Waterston plays Erwin Griswold, and I mean, he should have just had a mustache he could twirl. We can't let the women win. And that guy may have been like that. I don't know. I didn't know him. But then you also had Jack Rayner, who was the young lawyer that was trying to was up against Ginsburg in the big trial that takes place in the movie, and he's kind of cartoony too. And Stephen Root, who I know he can be cartoony in his acting. The part he was in, I wish it would have been a little serious. Now, he can do serious. I've seen it. But I don't know. The bad guys, quote unquote bad guys, came off as kind of silly. And being that you already knew they were going to lose, it just, I don't know. There was no real threat. I mean, granted, yeah, it's based on a true story. And if you know the outcome, it's like, women have a lot more rights now. You kind of know how the movie is going to end. But, I mean, again, the movie's okay. It's a feel-good movie. I wouldn't recommend rushing to the theater to see it. It's definitely a rental at best. But just the way some of the characters talk, it's a lot of them were saying things that it's like they were fishing for sound bites. Well, if we don't do it for them, then who are we doing it for? And things like that. And granted, again, this stuff might have been said. I don't know. But just in the context of this movie, it it didn't come off the way I feel that they wanted it to. I would suggest, even though I haven't seen it, I would suggest probably watching that documentary RBG that came out not too long ago, to get a more complete story of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I'm willing to bet, honestly, that it's that documentary's popularity is the reason this movie got made. And in a way, it does feel a little rushed. Like, it's like, woo, we got to strike while the iron's hot. Let's make this movie. Again, it's not terrible. It does stretch the truth and change some things. Not as bad as, say, like a Bohemian Rhapsody. But let me just say this. If you ever wanted to know what it would be like to see a young Ruth Bader Ginsburg have sex with her husband, they don't show too much, but they do have the start of a PG-13 sex scene, then this is the movie for you. That being said, I was reading an article trying to find the differences because History versus Hollywood didn't have anything on this one. They asked Ruth Bader Ginsburg about that, and she said that her husband would have found it funny. So I was fine with it. But it just, when it started happening, I was like, oh, is this the kind of movie it's going to be? Again, it's not bad, but should you rush to the theater? No, definitely not. Just wait for it to come out on rental. The next movie we're going to be talking about involves John C. Reilly being a part of an epic duo. No, not that one. No, not that duo. No, this duo. Stan and Ollie. Steve Coogan and John C. Reilly star as Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy. And what this movie's about is they show a little bit from their heyday, setting up a decade or so gap of what happened to their career after they split for a bit. And it's about them coming back together, trying to do a tour in England, or in Britain, my apologies, trying to do a tour in Britain, and it's them getting back together, and they address the problems that led to their split in the first place. And also, it's them trying to recapture the magic of their career, plus they're trying to get this Robin Hood comedy movie made, a Laurel and Hardy Robin Hood movie made. This movie, again, I couldn't find a ton of, is this what really happened on this tour? Again, History vs. Hollywood wouldn't have anything. I'm really hoping they get stuff on both these movies, because I'm always curious to see what was changed and what was not. But that being said, part of me doesn't care, because the performances in this movie by John C. Reilly, Steve Coogan, and all the supporting characters, especially Nina Arianda, who plays Laurel's wife, and Shirley Henderson, who plays Hardy's wife, those four performances are fantastic. Reilly and Coogan alone, I mean, you almost forget it's them. And even though, Reilly is definitely in a big boy suit to play the part, you rarely think of it as fake. Both of them together, they have the mannerisms down. If you've seen old Laurel and Hardy movies, you've seen the mannerisms. You know how they walk. You know how they move. And these two nailed it. I can't stress enough how good these two are as a duo. And it makes me proud of John C. Reilly, because I know by seeing movies like this and movies like The Sisters Brothers that he's better than the stupid bullshit that he was doing with the Holmes and Watson movie. He's way better than that stuff, and he proves it doing stuff like this. I don't want to say too much about the movie, but what the movie deals with is they flash back a little bit here and there, talking about how they were signed to a studio and they weren't getting money from their old films, and they were trying to make it to where they would get more money or have the rights to their own movies, as that was back when the movie studios had more control over the actors. The actors had to sign contracts and do certain multi-picture deals and things like that. It talks about the relationship of how they split, why they split, were they really friends, just all that sort of stuff. And plus, you get to see John C. Reilly and Steve Coogan pull off classic Laurel and Hardy performances. I don't want to say too much about it more. Just if you get a chance to see it, go see it. Watch it twice instead of watching it and Holmes and Watson, because you're definitely in for a better time. There's a lot of emotion in this movie. There's a lot of humor in this movie. I mean, if you think about it, the humor of Laurel and Hardy is somewhat timeless. I mean, it is timeless, but nowadays, would that comedy work? Probably not. That being said, watching these two pull off that comedy and still making it funny is amazing. It's something to behold. So if you get a chance to see Stan and Ollie, definitely go see this movie. I know it's not playing everywhere, but if you get a chance to see it, go check it out. That's going to be all for this double feature of Talkin Movies. If you like what you've heard here, please subscribe to the Real Geno YouTube channel, like this video, and if you have anything to say about either of these movies, please feel free to leave a comment in the section below. Until next time, I'm your host, the Real Geno, Geno Reynolds. See you later.